Learning to live with climate change.
Part 7.
Intergenerational stories of adaptation in the Red River catchment. Through the Rainstorm, an unforgettable story.
I was born and raised in Giao Xuan commune, a coastal countryside. The people in my hometown mainly live by fishing and farming. Every year, people face many natural disasters, such as storms, floods, salinization, and tsunamis, which make our lives even harder. One of the people who have seen different natural disasters is Mr. Ba, who lives in my neighborhood, and this is his true story. Mr. Ba is in his 80s, but still looks very healthy and happy. He has gray hair, a soft beard, a lovable smile, and bright eyes. He is so friendly and approachable, which made me feel braver to interview him about the weather and climate in the past. As we sat next to Mr. Ba on a mat, under the leaves, full of the cool breeze of his fortified house, we looked out over the field, beyond which we could see the high and long sea breakwater. Over the sea, the sails of the fishing fleet loomed. I began, "Could you tell me that unforgettable story of your life?" "Back in 1952, he began, in the middle of the First Indochina War. It was June or July, and I was just a 13-year-old boy. I was in grade 6 at a secondary school in Sachau village, a famous place for its fish sauce. The brand Sachau fish sauce is still renowned today. Being far from school, I had to wake up early every morning to get there on time. There was no motorbike back then, so I could only walk to school barefoot. That day, the weather was chilly, sometimes with raindrops, with deep red skies in the distance, gradually turning in a soggy gray color. I heard people say that there was a storm coming. Regardless of whether the storm was big or small, we still went to school. Then the sun suddenly began to break through, but people did not stop strengthening their houses, preparing for a storm. The houses at that time were mostly earth-walled, with bamboo poles and a grass roof, not as they are now, full of iron, steel, and concrete. Long bamboo trees were woven together and braided on the tops, tied down with ropes, and fastened to sturdy stakes. Doors and bamboo curtains were also tied down. So are the barns for cattle, chickens, and pigs. All are shielded and firmly tied. A large pot of rice cooked for the whole day was still warm on the straw stove. It was early in the first period, but everyone seemed less focused on the lecture because of the winds and showers. Looking at the sky with an anxious face, the headmaster came to each class and allowed students to go home 4 periods earlier. After the dismissal, the Board of Patronage quickly mobilized people to reinforce the school's roofs, walls, and doors. Students dispersed on the village roads, some of which crossed a section of uninhabited fields. My way home was still far away. The rain started falling heavily, and there was no more sun, only heavy clouds. Bamboo and trees on both sides of the road reclined as the wind blew, squirming from one side to the other. The unpaved road was so slippery that although my toes pressed down, I could not resist whenever the wind blew. Big raindrops hit my face like hundreds of thousands of needles. The wind blew in front and behind, making my footsteps no longer at will. Suddenly, with a sharp sound, my raincoat was torn and tossed away. I fell and was thrown into the grass on the side of the road. I tried to crawl forward, but could not. I lost my backpack and rice ball without realizing it, only the cold and an empty stomach left. Unable to hide my curiosity, I interrupted Mr. Ba, intending to know thoroughly. "Mr. Ba, did you know what level the wind was at that time?" Mr. Ba looked at me and stopped talking, but did not answer my question. He took the smoking pipe that lay nearby and slowly put the tube in his mouth to blow the leftovers into the empty barrel. He put a new ball of tobacco into the pipe and ignited it. He puffed at it for some time and ended it with a long and satisfying draw. Slightly leaning back, he filled the air with the dense smoke, enjoying the high of the tobacco. Taking a sip of his strong tea, as if understanding my impatience, he turned actively and said, "What was the wind level, right?" "My dear, in the past, there was not as much information about the wind level as now, but as far as I know, the wind was only about level 7 or 8 at best. Had it been stronger, I would have been blown to another planet." His funny way of speaking amused me, and I thought he was rational because of how a 13-year-old schoolboy could withstand a stronger wind. Moreover, he had come a long way. Then Mr. Ba continued, "My dear, I tried to cling to a tree by the side of the road at that time, but the cold rainstorm wind was too strong. I fainted on a ragged paddy field, but my ears still echoed the buzzing of the wind, the rumble of the rain, and sometimes the sound of a blowing horn and the emergency 5-time drums from the dike guards to ask for help. Bang, bang, bang. I heard from the drum 5 times over. Bang, 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 bang. The sound is slowly getting quieter. Bang, 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 bang. Then I knew no more. Slowly opening my dull eyes, I didn't understand why I was lying by a fire in baggy brown clothes. It turned out that when I fainted, a female officer, Mrs. Khan, walked by and took me there. At the roadside cafe, she fed me spoonfuls of water, changed my clothes, and lit a warm fire to help me recover. Thanks to her and the cafe owner's help, I was safe. Mr. Ba paused for a moment and then continued, "My dear, this is the story I cannot forget when I was a schoolboy. It was also an indelible imprint of the storm on June 24th, 70 years ago. Moreover, I am always grateful to the female officer who saved me that day. I pray for her at every meal, in every sleep. Now, every time I listen to public information about the weather-changing seasons and constant storms, those details bring me back to a time far away, but I will never forget it. In my final years, I want to share some of my life conclusions. Human beings cause climate change. Storms are definitely stronger and more complex than those of the past. Am I right, my dear?" I listened carefully to every single word he said, but I was too confused to answer that question. Instead, I said, "Thank you very much for your story." Until now, being home and writing these lines, I still feel the same as I initially felt when I met him. I love and thank the 80-year-old man for passionately telling me his unforgettable story, a story about the rainstorm season and climate change that even I feel is memorable.
This message is brought to you by Unity for Action, an international collaboration focused on advancing climate actions. Follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Unity for Action.